welcome, 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 and welcome again. My name is Coach Veronica, and today I'm going to be talking about healing from a hurtful past, how we can do that, right? How can we grow from a hurtful past? How can we resolve past pain? So, as the live is populating, I encourage you to drop a line like, where are you from? What's your sign? Tell me a little bit about you. I'm going to go grab some water and then we'll get started. And this live is not going to be that long. It's going to be a short live. I'm here on TikTok and also on YouTube. So if you see me looking in either direction, you know why. I'll be right back. All right, here I come. So, before I begin, I want you to know where to find me. You can find me on my website at veronicamarie.com. You can find me on TikTok. You can find me on YouTube, but mostly on YouTube, okay? So, hey y'all, how you doing? What's up? How's your day going? We're talking about healing from a hurtful past, okay? Thank you. And Jordan made a scarf for me, so I have my scarf on. I have this shirt on, and I'm not going to tell you what it says, but my middle son was like, "What does your shirt say?" I said, "Don't worry about it. Don't read it." Okay. All right, we're talking about healing from a hurtful past. So this is streaming on YouTube as well, so you can catch it if you need to watch the replay. Can y'all begin to tap the screen? How are you doing? Welcome. If you're new here, welcome. My YouTube battery is low, so if the live cuts off, that's why. Okay. All right. So we're human. We are human, and part of our human experience is healing. And part of the things that we heal from involve other people, and usually it's hurtful actions and hurtful words, right? So, anybody here, have you experienced any hurtful actions or hurtful words? I'm given this topic. It was requested, right, that I give some insight on healing from a hurtful past and alchemizing that energy. So that's what I'm here teaching on. It's probably not going to be a long live, but it should be informative. If you're watching the replay, stop right here, type in the comments, yes, I have experienced hurtful words or hurtful situations with people. And we all have, right? And some of us overcome those words quicker, some of us slower, some of us not at all, right? And I think what the difference between people who heal from the hurtful words and those who don't, the difference is that people who heal from the words have come to some level of self-awareness, self-understanding, self-acknowledgement, and integration of self. They know how to integrate experiences into their everyday life. And so that's what I want to talk about. Okay, so if you have experienced hurtful words, hurtful things that you are still healing from, then this live is for you. Um, One of the things I would say to a person who is healing from a hurtful past is something that I read some years ago. It was so powerful, it stuck with me, and it's going to stay with me because it's a life-changing idea. The quote said, "What is important, what happened to you is important, but it's not as important as how you hold it. What has happened to you is important, but it's not as important as how you hold it." Now I want you to think on that for a little bit and think of the hurtful situation and ask, how am I holding it? Well, a clue into how you're holding it has is locked in the mind of the person that experienced it, the version of you that experienced it. And so think back into your mind when you first experienced the hurtful word or the hurtful situation. There was something you felt, there was something you thought, there was a conclusion you drew, right? And it shifted you in some kind of way. And so you need to understand that. What did you feel? What did you think? What conclusion did you draw from this? And how did it shift you? How did it change your life and your existence? Let me go put my children's phones away so that you can stop hearing that dinging and I can get back to teaching. I'll be right back. But you ponder on those questions, okay? In the meantime, tap the screen and let me know where you're from. Okay. And now that that is out the way, the phone was just going off. All right. So, again, a key to healing has to do with retrospect. You have to look in retrospect at the mind of the version of yourself that experienced whatever it is you experienced. What did you feel? What did you think? I want you to separate these into categories. This is the work because you need to understand how that self reprogrammed because of what was experienced. And so we can deprogram that, right? And so, what did you feel? You need to write feeling words. I felt hurt. I felt sad. I felt disappointed. I felt disregarded. I felt unimportant. I felt depressed. I felt anxious. I felt whatever I felt. The next question is, what did you think? Because you feel ways based upon how you think, right? The person said something, something happened, and you began to think some way about it. What did you think, right? Did you think that was mean, that was bad, that was off, that was selfish, that was inconsiderate, that wasn't kind, that was whatever? And then the next question is, what conclusion did you draw? We draw conclusions about things all of the time, and it's so subtle, you may not even know that you're doing it. And so, when the thing happened, what did you conclude? What did you take from it? Right? Sometimes you take from it ways that you need to shift or be. I need to do this. I need to be more of this, less of this. I need to become this. I'm not enough. There, whatever, you know? And so, listen, if you don't have mentorship or someone teaching you, you usually take everything personal. Kids take everything personal, right? So if you tell them they're wrong, they will take that personal, right? Or if you give them some feedback, they're gonna take it personal because they don't know any other way to take it. So if this happened to you as a child and you took it personal, then you may have drawn a conclusion about yourself. I need to change this. It may be with height or weight or a certain feature on your body or a skin color or an accent. I need to change this because this other way of being about me is unacceptable. That would be an example of a conclusion. When you draw a conclusion like that, that becomes a life rule. You begin to live your life like that, and that follows you all the way into adulthood. And you will find yourself doing things to shift and augment yourself based upon that experience way back when, right? So that's why you need to know what conclusions you drew and how did those conclusions shift you. See, you think that what they said or did shifted you, but that's not quite true. They said a thing, they did a thing, but it was your feelings, thoughts, and conclusions that led you to shift, right? And it's important for me to say that it's your feelings, thoughts, and conclusions that led you to shift. So if you want to heal that, the first part is understanding what I just mentioned, okay? So that's a work in and of itself to sit there and think in the mind of that self who had the experience. What did you feel? What did you think? What did you conclude? How did you shift? Because, see, more than likely, the way that you shifted moved you away from your authentic self. For example, I can remember being about 11 years old and not really worried about weight at all, right? And I had just eaten and I was standing by a door just talking And someone I loved very much looked at me and said, "Oh, look at your stomach sticking out. You need to hold that in." Okay. What did I feel? I felt surprised. What did I feel? I felt embarrassed, right? What did I think? Oh my God, my belly is sticking out. Something is wrong. Oh my God, she's upset. Something is wrong with my belly sticking out. I ate too much. I shouldn't have ate that much. I'll never eat that much again. That's the conclusion coming forward. I'll never eat that much again. A conclusion. I don't want to have a big belly. I don't want to be seen like that. And it went on and on and on. Pretty soon, I was very self-conscious about weight. I carried that all the way into adulthood, right? So I'm trying to give you an example of feelings, thoughts, conclusions, and decisions. So what I decided to do was walk around with my belly squeezed in all the time, right? Which meant I didn't want anyone to see me without me holding the belly in. How I shifted. I decided not to eat that much because anytime my belly started to stick out, I was going to be reminded of, oh, look at your belly sticking out. You need to, all right. So then I may have wanted to eat more sometimes, but I wouldn't. I may have wanted to drink more, but I wouldn't. And people might ask me, do you want more? And then I would be saying, no, that's not authentic. I moved away from my authentic awareness into an awareness that something is wrong with me and I need to shift it. So here's the question. We went into the mind of the self that experienced that situation. Now let's look at your present day mind. In what ways are you still moving by that conclusion? In what ways are you still augmenting yourself to avoid the feelings that your past self experienced? In what ways are you fearing that other people may see you that way? And so you still do things to shift and hide and cover and become or look to be something other than you authentically are, right? And so, even though what was said was hurtful, even though what happened was hurtful, what is more important is how you deal with it, right? And if you deal with it, because some people will continue in the behaviors that they decided to take on based upon their conclusion and blame the people who did it. Blame them for what they said. They shouldn't have said it. And maybe they shouldn't have said it, but they did say it. And if you keep blaming them, then you can never heal that part of you because let's say they're not around, or they don't apologize, right? So it's important for you not to blame them for your experience. The real deep reason that they said what they said and you felt what you felt and thought what you thought and concluded what you concluded and acted how you acted, the real reason is you did not have a firm sense of self yet. And that's what happens. People come in, they say something, and you may begin to shift your whole world because you don't have a firm sense of self. And who really does as a child, right? That's the real reason that thing is still bothering you today. So the question is, do you have a firm sense of self now? I'm going to give you a clue to that answer. Probably not. If you are still moving in behaviors based upon that past thing, if you are still thinking according to the patterns of that past thing, meaning doing whatever it is you decided to do back then, shrinking in, covering up, or whatever, if you're still doing that, then your past self is still very much active and you are not creating with your fullness. You're allowing that past energy to affect your present. So, what do you need to do about this? Well, number one, you need to identify yes, I still behave like that inwardly. I still think like that inwardly, and I'm still doing things based upon that. And it wasn't what they said for real. It was the fact that I didn't have a firm sense of self. And right now, quite honestly, because I didn't know how to heal, I still don't have a firm sense of self. But now it's time for me to get a firm sense of self. That's the answer. right? So again, what has happened to you is important, but not as important as how you hold it. And I'm trying to teach you to hold it in a way that leads to expansion rather than constant pain every time it gets triggered, every time it's being brought up. So number one, you need to recapping. You need to look back into the mind of the self that experienced that hurtful thing. You need to know, what were you feeling? What were you thinking? What did you conclude? And how did that change the way you operated? How did that change the way you saw yourself? How did it change the way you saw the world? Here's another one. Let me add another nugget. How did you see yourself before that? Because sometimes you already didn't feel good about yourself, and that person was reflecting what you already didn't feel good about, right? And so that's even more of a reason to not hold this in blame. They said that, they did this. Oh my God, I can't believe it. Yes, they did, and they shouldn't have. And God, I wish it wouldn't have happened. When we're talking about healing, we have to go, okay, they said it, but the reason it affected me that badly was because I didn't have a firm sense of self yet. Now, next part. How am I still thinking and behaving like that past self? How am I still shifting and augmenting myself based upon the past fears that I concluded? The things I wanted to avoid at that time. The ways I came to see myself. How am I still behaving in that way? Does this make sense? Tap the screen. Let me know if it makes sense. And if you see that you're still acting and behaving according to those feelings, thoughts, and conclusions, it's time for you to develop a firm sense of self now. Okay? How do we develop a firm sense of self? First of all, you need to remember, whatever you feel, whatever you think, whatever you conclude is valid. We're talking about self validation. It's sacred, it's holy. We need to honor it. It's not always true, but the experience is worth looking at. Hey, Darnisha. We're talking about self validation. Just because an emotion is valid doesn't mean it's based on truth. All right, I gotta say that because some people are walking around going, my emotions are valid. That is my truth. But it is not the truth. It is a truth based upon some past experience, some hurtful dynamic. That doesn't make it true just because you feel it, but it does make it valid. And why is it valid? Because every way that you feel gives a clue into how you're thinking. And every way that you think gives a clue into what you believe. And your belief systems navigate how you move in this world. They're the lens that you look through. They tell you how you interpret things. They tell you how you should see things and how you should move in response. So you need to know what your belief systems are. That's why what you feel is valid. Okay? Hey Chris, how you doing? So, to develop a firm sense of self, you need to know that however you feel, whenever you feel it is valid. Okay? The next question is, what do you feel? What are you thinking? And is that true? Now, this is where the challenge comes in for people. Is it true? Just because it's in your reality and it's how you feel, a way you feel strongly, doesn't make it true. Okay, so sometimes you need some help. You need a friend, you need a therapist, you need a coach, you need somebody to help you reassess things. Okay, it's what I'm feeling true. Sometimes you need some help reassessing. Am I saying you need to believe whatever you're told? No, but you need different perspectives so you can see which one is true and which ones are not. Okay. Then, once you hit truth, you need to ask yourself, am I living by this truth? Is this thought filtered by truth? Is this emotion consistent with truth? And I'm going to give you an example in a minute. Okay? And if it's not, you need to exchange it for what's true. And then you need to practice it. So let's talk about what that looks like, shall we? All right, so in my example, I talked about having someone say something negative about my stomach, and then I began to feel self-conscious about weight ever since then, right? Until I got into my adult years and realized, hey, there's nothing wrong with my weight, right? Thank you for liking the live, pretty mom. Let me stop right here and see if y'all good. Does this make sense? Does it make sense? Thank you for being here. All right. So let us continue. One thing you can do, besides get a coach, besides get a therapist, besides have a friend who is skilled who can help you, you can conduct a study on universal truth. Universal truth may be a new idea for some people, okay? But a universal truth is truth that is true for everyone, no matter who you are, where you are, what generation you lived in, what region you live in, whatever. It's true for every single person. It's true for every sentient being, okay? You might need to do a study on universal truth and become familiar with it. Because without universal truth, you're living by subjective truth. And subjective truth almost always is going to lead you down a rabbit hole of pain when you're trying to heal. You need something to build a foundation upon and then build from there. Okay. So, for example, let me go back to mine. So I told you I was standing by the door and somebody said, "Oh my God, your stomach is sticking out. You need to hold that in and do something." And all of a sudden, what did I feel? Let me recap if you just popped in. I felt embarrassed. I felt shocked. I felt ashamed. What did I think? I thought, oh my God, number one, I look bad. Number two, something is wrong with me. Number three, I need to do something. What did I conclude? I concluded that I don't need to eat a lot. I concluded that I needed to walk around with my stomach holding in, squeezed in. I concluded that it's not okay for people to see me with my stomach not squeezed in. And I concluded that it's not okay to eat what I want. I need to eat only as far as it allows my stomach to be sucked in comfortably. That was my conclusions. So what did that produce? I was 11 years old at that time. What that led to was self-consciousness, weight consciousness, particularly as it related to the midsection. When I look back at my high school pictures, right? I was just as slim as ever, but I felt fat. I had a distorted self-image from that. Right? Now, why did I feel all of that? Because I didn't have a firm sense of self. It wasn't what the person said. It wasn't that they said it. It was that because I didn't have a firm sense of self yet, I did not know where to put that comment. So it hit my heart because my heart had no self validation. I was still young, right? So it hit me in my heart and I changed some things and I didn't want to be seen and I was hiding things. And that followed me into adulthood, especially after I had my children. I lived in fear, like, oh my God, like my stomach is stretched, is never going back in. I'm gonna look like that for the rest of my life. Can I get surgery on my, all of these things, right? In my relationships, there have been times where I didn't want to be seen with the lights on. There have been times where I didn't want to be seen at all because if my stomach was poking out, I didn't want them to see. This sounds trivial, but this is the experience of many people. And it came from that 11-year-old time where I didn't have a firm sense of self. Also, what came from that was me excessively looking at other women and comparing. She has a little waist. I wish my waist was small. And my waist was small. But I couldn't see that. That's why I said you need universal truth because my truth was I'm fat. My truth was my stomach is big. My truth was this is nasty. My truth was I don't want anyone to see. While that was valid, it was not true. But I felt like it was true. And that was my experience for a long time. And even when people assured me, oh my God, you're so beautiful, you're fine, you're perfect, and all these things, they could say it till the cows came home, but I was not going to release my stomach. I just wasn't going to do it. I don't care how beautiful you think that is, not going to do it. I'm trying to show you how holding on to something hurtful can affect your later years. Then I don't want to show myself to lovers. right? It began to affect how close I wanted people to be, how intimate I could be. It had an effect. Why did it have an effect? Because they said that? No, they did say it. But I didn't go into all of that because they said that. I went into all of that because when they said it, I didn't have a firm sense of self. And because I held it as their fault, I could not develop a firm sense of self. Therefore, that self remained inside of me. Couldn't resolve the energy because it was them. They said this, they did that. They, right? And because they did it, I still live with this to this day, that was the sentiment. But when I realized what was universally true, which is we sometimes things hit us before we have a firm sense of self. And if that happens, it has effects. And you cannot blame the other person, even though they did say it, even though it was hurtful. If you want to expand out of it, you're going to have to see the real reason that affected you that way. And the real reason is you didn't yet have a firm sense of self. And that's what happens when people say things and you do not have a firm sense of self, then you absorb it. You make it part of your being. You integrate it into your being. Hey, Nova. And if you still are behaving according to that pattern, you still don't have a firm sense of self. So it's time for you to develop it. Number one, live authentically. What do you want? What do you desire? Be truer to yourself. So, one of the things I had to realize, I had taken my body fat down from about 36% all the way down to 20%. And I still didn't want nobody looking at my stomach. This is how pervasive it is, right? And we're talking about 2018. From 11 years old to 2018, I'm still operating in that same way, still not having a firm sense of self. I don't have my own self image at that point. I only have the self image that was given to me. So, what I decided was the way that I exist is fine with me. Whether someone is saying it's a big stomach, a small stomach, a skinny stomach, a fat stomach, it's fine with me. How I exist is how I am, and that's fine with me. Now, that seems trivial, but I promise you it's profound. You're going to have to take a radical step toward self-acceptance. Anything you reject within yourself, anything you try to hide within yourself, anything you're trying to cover within yourself or on yourself, it's time for you to come out of hiding and do the work of deciding that how you exist is fine with you. Features on your body that you don't like, you're going to have to do the practice of how I exist is fine with me. I'm well with how I am. I'm well with who I am. Therefore, I don't have to shape shift, augment, or change or water down any part of it because I am this. Period. Notice I didn't say I like this. I said I am this, right? You're going to have to take a spiritual perspective about life because spirit is not walking around talking about I like this and I don't like this. That's a human construct. That has to do with your brain. People who have brains have judgments like this. I like that. That's skinny. That's fat. That's tall. That's light. That's dark. That is a byproduct of having a brain. But spirit is not doing that. Okay? Spirit says, I am. Greetings, T. I am. That I am. That's a personal work. That's shadow work. That statement has to resonate deep within you. So going back to the whole stomach thing, I am that. And I'm going to walk around with that, looking like that. And those who don't want it, ashe. And those who want it, ashe. because my life is bigger than walking around thinking someone is looking at my stomach or looking at my hair some kind of way or looking at some feature on me in some kind of way. I am fine as I am. I am that. When I look in the mirror, I am that. When I look in the camera, I am that. When I look in the camera with the filter, I am that. When I look in the camera without the filter, I am also that. I'm all these things. I'm that. When I wake up, I'm that. When I go to sleep, I'm that. When I smile, I'm that. When I frown, I'm that. All the spaces and all the ways that I am that, right? And whoever wants to put more on that, like, you are ugly, you are fat, you are this. Whoever wants to do that, they don't deserve space in my brain. They don't deserve my attention. They don't deserve my high regard, because chances are they already don't like their own self. Because anybody who's liking themselves for real in a deep way is not looking at other people going, oh, they ugly. Oh, look at their skin. Oh, you know why? Because that person has experienced humanity, and that person knows how it feels to have a pimple. So they're not going to make fun of your pimple, right? If they've had some time to think in a deep way. Now, if you're talking about a person that don't think deeply, they will. They had a pimple, they hated it, someone made fun of them, and so they're gonna make fun of you. They don't like their own self with a pimple, so they ain't gonna like you, right? But when you have people who are living from a divine space within themselves, they have honor for all of your human experience, right? And therefore there's no need to judge. Ooh, they fat. Ooh, they wear this. Ooh, they wear that. That is a collective thought of unconsciousness. And so again, having a firm sense of self means that you're going to have to step into the awareness that I don't want to behave in these unconscious ways. I don't want to get in alignment with that. They say my short hair is ugly. I need to grow some. They say my long hair is ugly. I need to grow some. They said they don't like my eyebrows. I need to stop doing them like that. They said they don't like whatever. We got to come away from that. Developing a firm sense of self means accepting in a deep way, I am that I am. I am what I am today, and tomorrow I might be different, but for today, this is where I am. This is who I am. But if you're the type of person that looks back and disdain at yourself, right? You look at a past version of yourself and you're like, oh, I can't believe I was like that. Oh, you wince and things like that. It's telling me that you don't have any self-honor for that self. And as long as you don't honor that part of yourself, you exist in a sort of apathy within yourself about it. So it's gonna filter how you see the world outside. It's gonna filter how you behave when people tell you something. When I talk about radical self-acceptance and radical self-validation, I'm not talking about taking a bubble bath. I practice self-care. I take myself out on a date. I practice self-care. That's fine and dandy. But do you have a firm sense of self? Are you looking back at any versions of yourself in disdain? Are you looking back at any versions of yourself in judgment? Are you still behaving and thinking and feeling in patterns of a past self? Any and all of that means that it is time for you to develop a firm sense of self, and that begins with radical self validation and acceptance. I am that I am. It don't get no more affirmative than that. I am. Do you get defensive a lot? If you get defensive a lot, then you're probably having a problem with I am that. Because your defense makes you go, no, I'm not. I'm not that. I'm not that. Or I'm not that anymore. So if you're living with some defensive patterns, right, you haven't come to I am that. If you are judging past selves and judging yourself for not being farther than where you should be or something like that, you're having a deep problem with I am that I am. Hey there, tropical storm. You look in the mirror, you see something you don't like, you say, that's not me. You don't say, I am that. You make a video and you don't like how your right eye keep twitching. I am that. Let me know if that makes sense. Tropical storms, where you been? What's up? And we are a work in progress in this way, right? I don't know anyone who has arrived who's being honest, right? So the work is whenever you come into some awareness of shame, of guilt, of some past hurt, past pain, trace it back to whatever memory comes up and examine that past self. What did you feel? What did you think? What did you conclude? How did that thing shift you? Is it still affecting you today? How are you still behaving according to that pattern? And what do you need to know? I'm giving you a clue. The first thing you need to know is it ain't because they said it that you felt the way. You internalized what they said because you didn't have a firm sense of self yet. All you could do is internalize things when you don't have a firm sense of self. When you have a firm sense of self, you see yourself as XYZ. And when a person is saying you're A, B, C, D, and E, you pause and you go, is that true? Is there any truth in that? Because and when you do shadow work, this is not about denying what people are saying. I'm not talking about denying. No, I'm not like that. That's you. No, no. Is there any true reflection in this? What is it reflecting? Right? Let me give you an example. Okay. So for a long time, I just valued patience. Right? I really wanted to be patient. And I am a patient person under certain circumstances. That's most people. Because if you have patience without wisdom, you're going to self destruct. Okay, and I had to learn in Christianity the difference between the gifts of the Spirit and the fruit of the Spirit. You need them working together. So wisdom is a gift of the Spirit, but patience is a fruit of the Spirit. You need wisdom to govern your patience. Okay, so anyway, I valued patience, but I had a very not so balanced view of it. I just wanted to be infinitely patient. So when somebody would say, "You're impatient," I would get defensive. No, I'm not. I'm not impatient. No, I'm not. All of that, like go into a whole conniption because I wanted to be seen as patient. And then one day I realized I am patient. I'm also impatient. There are situations and circumstances that I have absolutely no tolerance for. There are situations and circumstances where I have a level of patience and then I reach my threshold. But normally I try to stop myself before I reach that threshold, right? Everybody has a patience threshold. So there's nobody who's just totally impatient, okay? I had to realize the concept of duality. I am impatient in scenarios and I am patient in scenarios. Self validation. Instead of defending, I validate my duality. Okay? So now if a person says, "Well, you're not patient." I am patient, but I'm not patient with this. I don't want to be patient with this. I don't like this. I have no tolerance for it. I can say that, right? But before I couldn't. Even if I felt impatient, I was going to defend and be like, "Well, how am I supposed to feel when such and such is going on? I am patient, but how am I supposed to act when, you today impatient?" you know, duality is a thing. And this is really a problem with people who are not balanced in their light and dark qualities. If a person